Hi, Anand. Hi, Shobu. It's wonderful to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Before I start, I have to say I recently revisited and rewatched the Bahubali movies, and I just have to say I'm such a massive fan of this world that Shobu you helped create as producer, and Anand that you have further expanded as an author of these trilogy of books. And I'm so excited to be here to talk to you about the third book in the series, The Queen of Mahishmati. So yes, I'm so glad that we can have this chat and just talk about this world which so many of us are so obsessed with. So again, welcome. Um, Anand, I want to start with you at the beginning. I believe that Rajamouli approached you after he read one of your books, and he thought that you were the right person to really expand this universe. So, what drew you to this world, and what do you feel that these books have given you that maybe your others haven't?
Thank you very much, Suchin, for having it here. My association goes back almost for 4 years now, or 5 years perhaps. When one day a call landed up, a mail landed up later from Rajamouli sir. He had read my Asura, and then I had met Rajamouli sir and Shobu sir, Prasad Devaneni, the other producer also, and I was given this challenge rather to go back to the world and create it, not what is not in this, because the film was so beautifully written, and Vijayendra Prasad sir, Rajamouli's father, who had scripted it, he had created a fascinating world which the entire world knows now. So something, writing something behind that, that is going back 30 years to that, how it reached there was a real challenge. And knowing Rajamouli sir, he made it more challenging by asking me to do it in 100 days. So the first book, that is the Rise of Shivagami, came in 100 days perhaps. The only book which I have written faster than that is Queen of Mahishmati, because second book had come. My publishers were after me this time. They said, we want the book as early as possible. So I think it was even edited out in 100 days, written and edited and published in 100 days, this 560-page book.
Wow.
The second book only took some time in between, and I had also gone into certain other projects. But now in 4 years, all the three books, almost 1,500 pages, I think the world has expanded, hopefully to a much massive scale. And I am really grateful to be in this, to play a small part in this world, creation of this world. What I did was, I went back and created the childhood, or rather from the teenaged Shivagami to, in the third book, she becomes the Queen of Mahishmati, to the birth of the first Bahubali. So until there it ends, the last one, from where the film takes off. So my job was to reach it there. As much as possible, I have done it, and readers are liking it. I hope this will also stand the test of time, like the Bahubali movies have done.
I can certainly speak for the fans when I say that everyone's very glad that you wrote them so fast. They really want them as fast as possible. Shobu, I ask you, when you started on this journey with Rajamouli almost 10 years ago, did you ever think that one day we would be sitting here discussing not just the movies, but a trilogy of books based on them?
Not at that time. Definitely not at that time. But when we first heard the story, we knew it had a big world and a very larger than life characters, very strong characters, and strong and very significant worlds, interesting worlds. So we knew it had to be made into two films. And but my whole intention was that based on the success of the first film, we would then see how to expand the universe. But definitely at the very onset, we did not have that in mind. We were more focused on making the first film successful.
Well, it's great to see that this world is revisited and expanded in so many different ways for the fans.
Absolutely.
Anand, I want to ask you. This is the last book in the series, and this obviously traces the rise and the origins of characters like Katappa and Shivagami. So, are you going to miss this world, given that the trilogy is now over? And what do you feel these characters have taught you, considering you've lived with them for so long?
It is very difficult to send them away, actually. The finishing of the book is a very quite tough moment. because after some time, no, initially you create something. In fact, Shivagami, Kattappa, and Vijaladeva, the three characters in this book, I owe it to the great Bahubali film world, which Rajamouli sir and his father had created, Vijayendra Prasad sir had created it. So I had to just go to their mind and bring them in. But other than that, around 40 characters I had created to expand this world, because I wrote it with a sense that whether I am capable for doing it or not, I am a very ambitious person. So I wrote it with a sense that this may one day be regarded as epic. So I have to write it in that
Yeah.
way. So lots of what you call other kind of stories, lot of sub stories, subplots, many things. I tried to bring it into that. So almost 40 characters, all equally important, all can be, we can derive each of the character and make them into another story, like how we do in the Puranas. I come from the world of mythology, in the sense that all my other books have been based on spins of mythology, whether my television series or the books, they are all been different point of view, from Ravan's point of view or Duryodhana's point of view, Asura, Ajaya, Vanara, other kind of books. So I was trying to create something, perhaps 1,000 years hence. It's very bit ambitious and nonsense also when I tell like that. But 1,000 years hence, people should be able to bring out one character out of it, say Ali or Jimuda, one character out of it, and spin another story on that, so that the world will keep on expanding. It won't just stop with the books or the films. If you see our epics, or any epics or fairy tales or myths in the world, they grow as centuries pass. More and more stories will be added
Yeah.
by many more writers into that. So I wrote it with a conscious thing that maybe, perhaps, who knows, why not try it? Who knows, maybe this may become after 1,000 years a myth, and who knows, perhaps Bahubali will become a god. Yeah, that's as a lighter part. No offense to anyone, but this is how
Waiting for the
myths
skies.
have come in any culture. So, with all those importance of historicity, I started writing, and now looking back, it is very sad, and I'm also happy. Also, it's like children. Even though my children are small and they are yet to leave home, but I can understand the feeling. Like when you send off the characters, it's like children becoming mature and going home. We can only hope that they do well.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And when you started this journey of these books, did you know exactly what was going to happen in each book, where one will finish, when will start, or was it also a case of discovering the story as you wrote it?
I am a very intuitive writer, but here we know what will happen in the end. What is beginning in the film,
Yeah.
that is going to happen in the end. So I knew the end
Yeah.
here. But the journey of any book is, the journey is important. So with other characters, apart from Shivagami and Kattappa, other characters I had no clue who will live, who will die. So initially, I thought when I created it, okay, I am going to decide who is going to live, who is going to die. I had a big flow chart. I had decided this day this guy is going to die, this day this guy is going to become king. But as I wrote, the characters took over and they had a will of their own, which usually happens to many writers in most books. And who I wanted to kill didn't die. Who I wanted to lose didn't lose. Who I wanted to make them win, they didn't win. So it became a spontaneous process, and I think every story will have its own life, and you'll have to leave it. After some time, you let it go. So I didn't know how other characters are going to end, except for Shivagami and Kattappa. Other characters, they went on their way.
So the story really takes a life of its own. And Shobu, in the West, there is this big culture of really expanding these fantasy epics. There's spin-offs, there's merchandising. They do so much more with these stories. And here we really don't have that culture, and that's exactly what you've done with Bahubali. There's the book series, the VR, the animated series, the graphic novel. So why do you feel we don't have that culture here?
I think it's a growing process. I think eventually we'll reach there. I mean, the West is a much more mature market, and
Yeah.
and they have been the ones who have normally set the trend of the path forward. And I think it's Bahubali has shown the way, and now I think more and more stories are coming, which will become franchises and which will have a world and which can have many spin-offs. And soon that will become a culture. It wasn't a culture. I think we never focused on that. We were more focused on telling single cinema, independent cinema, hero-based cinema, hero-driven or star-driven films. But I think now it's changing, and I think very soon we will be seeing a lot more franchises being made. Because ultimately, franchises bring in a lot of advantages because you have a solid fan base to depend on, and you have so many other spin-offs to capitalize on. And it's not just one film, but there's a continuity to the whole process. And now, especially in the current scenario where there's so many mediums that are opening up, whether it's streaming, gaming, digital media. So there's a lot of opportunity, and I think it's just a matter of time before we see a lot more franchises.
What do you feel this whole process has taught you, this idea of expanding this world across mediums and platforms? It's a very sort of new, exciting space, I imagine. So what is that? What do you feel has been the biggest lesson you've learned in really exploring the Bahubali universe?
So really, when we, I think the primary thing is when every film can't be made into every story can't be made into a franchise. So there can be sequels. That's a different sequel franchise. But in a franchise in the sense like Bahubali or a Star Wars kind of, or a Marvel universe, they need strong characters and very strong worlds in which they exist. I think those are the key parameters. If you have those, and then the world is solid, and then from that world you can, and from those characters and from that world you can make a film. Then you can make you can make a series. You can make a animated series, live action series. You can make games, all from that central world. So it is what we've realized. It's not the film is not at the center of a franchise building. Film is one part of the world. Through which fans get immersed into the world. Tomorrow there's a Netflix series that's coming up, loosely based on the book. Fans could be coming into the world through the Netflix series and discovering the films. It's not or through the books that Anand has written. Somebody who has not seen the films could be reading the books and then coming to explore the series and the movies. It's a very synergistic, and it's driven from the central world, which is not the film. Because when I started it, I thought films become the center of the universe for us, but it's not that. It's that films are, in this aspect and many aspects, films are the successful component of that, but they're not necessarily the central part of that whole thing.
I think speaking on behalf of the fans, we are all in. So whatever you want to try and throw at us, we will happily gobble up. Anand, you mentioned that you finished writing this book in an insanely quick amount of time, and I believe you wrote it and finished it last year in lockdown. While most of us in lockdown have been just trying to get through each day, you have been pretty insanely productive. I believe you finished this. You finished another book. There was a children's book. You launched 2 TV shows. I believe there was a podcast and a film script. I mean, that's pretty insane productivity-wise. So has lockdown been a good time for you just to create?
Actually, lockdown for me was a good time to be alone. I was locked up in my home. Usually what happens, many of your time goes in discussion, traveling around in Mumbai. The traffic, half of your life is spent in travel. Now, all my film or whatever I am doing, all the writer's room were virtual, so I can sit in my room. I had to just wear a good shirt, not even a good pants, sit there and have a Zoom call, and that saved a lot of time. So that helped me in a lot of my productivity, not just writing. A lot of films I watched, a lot of shows I watched, a lot of books I read. So that way I understood that 90% of the time we are wasting on traffic and useless things. So there was a good period for me in 2020 to be productive. Almost 5 books. Apart from this, another 5 books I had wrote, as you said, 2 shows, almost final script of a film. So it's quite productive, and almost 100 books which I read. A lot of time I got. It's not nice to say it is a good year. It hasn't been a bad year for the entire world, but as a writer, it gave me a lot of my own time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's great to know that you are able to charge, and we really look forward to sort of watching it and reading all of it. Shobu, you mentioned the Netflix series, and I have to tell you, when we announced, this session, the biggest question I got from the most amount of people for both of you was, what is happening, Bahubali Netflix? We really want to know. It's obviously based on the first book of Anand, which is, Rise of Shami.
Right.
I think people are really desperate for an update. There was so much written about the fact that it was shot in 2019, and there's talk recently about how it's getting redone. So what can you tell us about it?
So yeah, it was started as soon as the second part of the movie was over, pretty much a year later in 2018. We did film quite a bit of it, but then Netflix wanted to scale it up, because we felt that we have to do justice to the films, both the films. And so in an effort to scale it up, we had to go back to the drawing board, revisit it, and redesign the whole show. So it's being redesigned and rewritten, and it's going to the floors very soon. And I think very soon you can expect to see the series on Netflix in some time. Not very soon, but in some time. But it was
I imagine that was a very tough call to make. But
it was a very tough call because it is definitely because you have everybody put a lot of effort into it, and then but then to start again was a tough call. But I think it is in the best interest of the franchisee and in the interest of the also we'll be able to give much more to the fans, although the wait is going to be longer.
Yeah. I think the fans will happily wait. So however long it takes, we are ready and we are excited. Anand, you've said before, I mean, the series is obviously based on the first book. And you've said before that you write your books as movies. You almost visualize them on screen when you're writing. So is that something you consciously do as someone who's a screenwriter, as an author? Do you always go into them imagining that they could be adapted into something? Is that something that you keep in mind?
Actually, I think it worked the other way around. I got called by many directors and producers, whether it in TV or even Rajamouli sir and other things, because I always see it as a movie before I write. The reason is I am not very comfortable. I was never very comfortable writing in English. English is not my first language. I learned it very late. But I always love telling stories. So usually what I do, I cannot, my mother tongue, if I write, the reach will be less. That's why I shifted to English. After initially writing few books in Malayalam, I shifted to English. With Asura, I shifted. And it became even now it's in a bestseller list. So at that time, since I had the handicap of language a bit, I decided I will tell it as like a film, like a visual storytelling. Which fortunately, it was not planned, which fortunately helped me, because it was easier for me to shift to screenplay also, because as such books itself I was writing like more like a film. And I believe now that is a way to write, because of 110 years of cinema has happened. So people are used to story told in a visual format. A beautiful prose, a language be a handicap also. Why? Because that belonged to a different era where the storytelling was basically told as poetry. People used to sing the stories. All great literature were poetry. So when the novels came, they imitated that. So beautiful verses were there, beautiful words were there. But now, for the last 100 years, the dominant form of storytelling is visual. So I think writing visually, even on books, even on novels, is an advantage which through experience I learned. So that is why most of my scenes, I first visualize it and then write it.
That's why, so many people who read them literally say they can't read them without visualizing exactly what's happening, because they've seen some of those characters. So it's and I wanted to ask both of you, as a producer and an author, there's been so much talk about how movies really haven't done justice to tapping into the stories coming out of India in our books. We have such a rich culture of authors, and book adaptations are still they're still not the most common. So do you both feel that things are changing and it's getting better, and films really are tapping into this wide breadth of stories available to us in our books?
I think going forward, especially with again the streaming series demand for series from streaming platforms and good quality movies. I think we'll be tapping. We have already started tapping into books, definitely,
Yeah.
And we will be looking more and more into adapting books into series or movies, depending on how much of the world there is and how much of a story there is. Definitely, and especially not just books, but even Indian mythology and Indian stories from the past. I think we will see a lot of focus on that areas, and we need to and I think it's the right time we do it.
Yeah. Anand, would you agree?
I think Bahubali set the trend. The producers, the Arka, the producers Shobu and Prasad, I think I should give the credit to them because they taught Indians to think big in a theme like that. I was just wondering. Suppose the story is told, now it is a huge success, a massive success. But first time when somebody comes and says, "I need 500 crores to produce a film based on two kings," not many. Just imagine that scene. I keep imagining that. Not many producers will have the courage to do that at that time. It showed that the trust they had on the great director Rajamouli sir and his father. But yet it is a great step forward which they did. And this has, I am grateful to them because this has opened up the entire market for big films, which has benefited everyone. Now the film I am working on, which is also quite big. Also my book, Vanara, that also has been optioned and that is also becoming a big film. So all these things is thanks to the success of Bahubali. Now producers across India in all languages are thinking big, huge, 200 crore, 150 crore. Even a language like Malayalam is coming up with films of 150 crore budget. 100 crore budget, which was unthinkable 4-5 years back, where 3 crore was supposed to be high budget. Suddenly the thing expanded across the country, all languages. So that I think all credit is due to the Bahubali producers who came up with such a bold idea to tell this fascinating story. I think in another 10 years, Suchin, another 10 years, this is my firm belief, Indian stories will dominate the world.
We certainly
have so many
hope
stories.
you're right. We certainly hope you're right. I mean, that would be amazing to see.
We will be challenging the Hollywood in another 10 years. Wait and mark my words. Maybe the people who do might not be the people who are doing it now. But definitely the trend has started, that domino effect has started. It is going to become bigger and bigger. Corona might have slowed down a bit, but I think Corona was very productive for all the creative people. So if the rumors are correct, and from my other writer friends also, all the OTT platforms and other things and producers also are flooded with stories, big stories, great stories. So in another 10 years is going to be the fascinating year for Indian film industry, whichever language it is.
We certainly look forward to that. Should we just speak of the many achievements of Bahubali? Like Anand said, it taught the industry to think big and really use their imagination. But there's been so much talked about the Bahubali effect. Ever since the film has come out, every industry are putting up these massive tentpoles, these fantasy epics. They're trying to sort of replicate that magic, that impact. And not many films have come anywhere close, just in terms of the storytelling, the impact from the audience. Why do you feel that is? Do you feel it's because of just the amount of time and the amount of years you guys put in to really getting this project right? Why do you feel it is that despite all these attempts, nothing has come close to the magic of Bahubali?
So yeah, definitely you got it right in the sense one is definitely the time. the time that everyone has devoted to the project, whether it is from the director to the stars, everybody gave 4 years of the time, right? 4 to 5 years of the time. Unquestioned, they completely believed in it and gave that time. Without even like HODs like Sabu Cyril, the cameraman, DOP Sendil, all of them really believed in the project and gave it everything they had for those 4 years. So and that was driven by the vision that Rajmouli had, and that how he could convince everybody else, whether us as the producers or the film or the stars or the HODs, into believing in him and going along with him. So I think that is where we need to have visionary filmmakers who can devote the time without. I mean, ultimately everything has to make commercial sense. From the very beginning, counting how much, what is counting the commercials won't help. It is something that you need to give before you take. So you need to give a lot more time, a lot more effort, a lot more unquestioningly, and believe in it, and have a very capable filmmaker. Not everyone is capable of, is not their forte, not even capability. Some filmmakers like to do small independent slice of life films. That is their forte, and some believe in larger than life films like Rajamouli. And it is tapping into those people and giving them their freedom, and those people reciprocating it with giving back in time and effort, which is 100% there for that period of time, not being diverted because there is something else happening. I need to move on to another project. There are multiple opportunities that I'm feeling like I'm maybe losing out on some other opportunity because I'm spending so much time here. That whole conviction and being able to be there and I think that's what we need. And I think we will. I'm very optimistic that we will find there are a few, obviously, some filmmakers, and we'll find many more filmmakers willing to devote that kind of time to the projects.
But we remain hopeful that we find many more visionaries, just as a greedy audience. And Anand, just coming back to the books, like you said, this is the final chapter. This is of the trilogy that you've been working on. You finished it in record time. What do you hope? I mean, there's so much that the book lets you do that the film doesn't. You really go much deeper into this world. What do you hope that people take away from this last book?
See, books have their advantage and disadvantage over films. Let me focus on advantage being an author first. One advantage is you can go into the mind of the character, which is very difficult to do in the screenplay, which you need another character to bring it. So going into the mind of the character will add a lot of depth to the book, and I need not worry about the budget when I am doing the book. So I can create a huge war scene if I want. So my imagination is my limit. The reader's imagination is the limit. Nothing else.
Yeah.
Just imagine. So to create the kind of things which I have put in the book, it will require much more budget than what it was taken in the Bahubali. Because there is an advantage of the book, any book for that matter, for any writer. Two things: going into the character. Second thing, larger than life. To bring larger than life, it is more easier in the book. The disadvantage, obviously, everything you have to create with words. You don't have the benefit of great production design, the music, the dialogue, the actors' aura, the actors' fan base. All those things you don't have. With mere words, black and white words, you have to create the entire world. So one good takeaway which I could do in the film, which people can get, it is to make it a slightly more darker than the great world of Bahubali. I took that liberty to do because I was given the freedom to do that also, for which I am thankful. So I thought that will reflect life more, and there are two ways of doing this. One thing is make it into a great fantasy, a great world where we aspire to be in such a world. That is the way the film was done. What I tried to do, because that is my writing style, so I brought it to my writing style for good or bad, and I made it to appear like how the world would have been actually. So there are many dark characters. Rather, there are not many good characters in the book who are purely good like Bahubali.
Yeah.
All characters are grey, which will make into a good. The modern equivalent of a novel is a web series, which needs layered characters actually. A film can work with good versus bad, where good is really good, excellently good, and bad is really bad. But when you write it as a novel, when you write it as a web series, you need layered characters. And fortunately, since I have not taken Bahubali and taken the two grey characters from the film, that is Shivagami and Katappa,
Yeah.
both are grey characters. If you really see, Shivagami orders the death of her own adopted son, the son who loves more. Who could be more grayer than that? And that is why we chose Shivagami's story to be told. You could have chosen any character. Easiest thing to do was to do Bahubali and do a sequel of it. The Bahubali's exploits after the film. That would have been the easiest thing to do. But we went behind because this gave a lot of layer. So the book is all about how actually the world would have been rather than how nice that world was. So it has gore, it has fighting, it has people who cheat, it is a game of changa, game of political game, political one-manship. People are vying for power. It is true to life. That is one advantage books have, because I am not worried about the image of the star or anything like that. When I am doing not about this film I am telling, when I am writing screenplay, I'll be worried about that for a film. But when I am writing a book, I need not worry about that. So since I do both, I feel this is why I love books. To write books, I love it more, even though screenplays pay better in monetary terms. Satisfaction, always, books are always better.
But you're right. It really lets you delve like no other medium. Shobu, last word to you. I read somewhere that you said that you meet Rajamouli frequently just to discuss the other things that you guys can cook up with this world, the other mediums and platforms you can explore to tell the story. So obviously we have the Netflix series. But anything else you can tell us? Anything else you have in the pipeline that people can look forward to?
We are working on something on the Bahubali world. But at this point, it's too early for me to say something, much more about it. But me and Rajamouli are in a conversation about something to take off from Bahubali. But
that's enough for us. That's what we
yeah, yeah. But I'll just leave it that we are definitely there's a lot more coming from the Bahubali universe in the future. It's not over.
We definitely. Thank you so much to both of you. This was such a wonderful conversation to rediscover this world and to talk about how, Anand, you've really expanded it and gone into it in such depth. The Queen of Mahishmati, the final book, is obviously out now for sale for anybody. So please, buy it and go delve back into this universe that we've all fallen in love with. But it was wonderful talking to both of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks.